Hello. Hi everybody or anybody. I am having a Peroni and I did not cut lumps off the back of my hair. I was just joking with you. But I did give myself a bit of a trim. Anyway, we're here to discuss On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong, which I just was flicking through it again today and going through different passages that I had marked and constantly just floored by the poetry of his writing. And I wanted to start off with saying how I came to the book in the first place. And I think, and because I'd saved this in my notes on my phone, but it was an article I had read, and it was either in the New Yorker or on NPR, so I'm sorry I don't remember which one. But it started off and it was saying he also wanted to say something about where the cost of war falls, not from the vantage point of the grand historical epic, but from inside the small, cramped sadness of a house still flattened decades after the conflict had ended. And then the quote is from Ocean. It's the stories of our species that men create these wars and women clean them up. They clean them up emotionally. They have to deal with the PTSD that comes home. They have to postpone their own healing, forego their own self-care in order to hold these households together. They literally nurse these broken bodies back to health. I wanted a book to bear that, to honor that without romanticizing it. To say women have been doing this and they're not necessarily these heroic legends. What's the mental cost for these women who do these extraordinary things? In the book, the cost is their own private life. So I read that and I was like, I need to read this book, and I was completely not disappointed. So let's hear what you guys thought. Can I see some? What do you think was Little Dog's reason for writing this letter? Well, I think the opening of the book sort of tells us that. He says, "Dear Ma, I am writing this to reach you." And I think from that moment, you just know that every word that he puts down on this page is wrought with the desire to connect and the pain that it is to communicate when people are really damaged. And I think that that's, what struck me so much about this book is how damage gets passed down from one generation to the next, and how when people are hurt or they're wounded, they end up wounding. And I mean, there's so much pain in this book, but there's also so much beauty, which, that's kind of why I love it so much. Let's see. I'm a mum of a transgender boy. Oh, how do I take this back? How I wish he could actually write to me with his feelings. Maybe if you write to him first, that's Asu Gemini. I think it's an amazing thing to encourage him to do. I think it's sometimes a safer space for us to write our feelings down than to actually have to sit and speak them. Sometimes it's too vulnerable. So maybe it's a good idea for you to write your feelings to him, and maybe he'll reciprocate. Okay, so I'm a book junkie. I've never been into poetry, but it read like that, right? I found it difficult to read in long spans, but found it beautiful. I'm glad you did, but I agree. I think his writing is so poetic. Just the syntax and the way that he evokes these images with simple. I mean, I have marked so many moments in this book because it just. This was one line that killed me. It's like, I am writing you from inside a body that used to be in yours. I mean, it's a very simple way of saying something, but not any way that I've heard somebody speak like that before. What part of the book spoke to me emotionally the most? There was so many. I think when he directly speaks or invokes his mother, I think that was really, really just heartbreaking. But I also think when he speaks about her inability to sometimes express herself, and so when she would hit him or lash out at him, and that absolute trauma within her, that she was never given the tools how to express herself, and so it just comes out in these like aggressive and erratic and sometimes really awful moments, and I think those were really awful. But the you know, when Lan died, that I was sobbing. Let's see. Okay. What do you think about the next reading being a book recommended by us? Well, we could, but it's my book club, so... someone saying they listen to the audiobook and it's read by the author. I would actually 100% listen to that. I might actually go do that. Thank you for the recommendation. I love the part about absorbing memories. It starts with the monkeys but really speaks to the little dog trying to soak up every memory of his family and having to live with the trauma passed down. Yeah, I mean, I kind of just want to read different passages if that's okay. Oh, this bit. I love this bit. When it comes to words, you possess fewer than the coins saved from your nail salon's tips in the milk gallon under the kitchen cabinet. Often you gesture to a bird, a flower, or a pair of lace curtains from Walmart and say only that it's beautiful, whatever it was. Dep quoi, you once exclaimed, pointing to the hummingbird whirring above the creamy orchid in the neighbour's yard. It's beautiful. You asked me what it was called, and I answered in English, the only language I had for it. You nodded blankly. I mean, just the fact that here is someone who has found solace in words, and it's the polar opposite to what his mother has, that she has such a limited education and such a limited vocabulary, even in Vietnamese. It's just, I don't know, it really, really touched me. And I also want to say, you know, part of what I try and do with this book club, or part of what I love about reading so much, is that we get to walk in the shoes of an experience or a life that is so different to our own. And, you know, I have never really read something from that perspective, from a Vietnamese immigrant perspective, from an American, but also a young man coming to terms with his sexuality in this way. So I hope you all enjoyed embodying and walking in the steps of someone's experience that was very different to your own. And I think that's what literature gives us and reading gives us, is this amazing capacity for empathy, because we understand another life in a way that we could never just from our own everyday life, right? I'm going to read one more bit and then I'm going to come back to questions. What is it? I should have actually marked instead of just postmarking. Oh, I know what this bit is. It was just more about when she goes to try and rescue her sister in the middle of the night because she believes that her husband's going to kill her, and then they get to a place and Lan tells her, but Mai has not lived here for 5 years. Lan says with sudden tenderness, Rose, although I don't see it, I can tell she's brushing her hair behind your ear. Mai moved to Florida, remember, to open her own salon. Lan is poised, her shoulders relaxed. Someone else has stepped inside her and started moving her limbs, her lips. We go home. You need sleep, Rose. And the tenderness of motherhood absolutely surpasses any of the problems with her schizophrenia, anything like that. It's just, she's able to just be there for her poor daughter who's obviously in a lot of distress and trauma. So let's go to some more questions. Why do I think he begins the letter with "Let me begin again"? Because I think he says it later in the book, where he says that this is the second time he's tried to write this book. And I love that he allows himself to sort of speak in almost a stream of consciousness. There's not he doesn't feel sort of pressure or obliged to, set a scene and open up a book in a very kind of like, it was a such and such a day or whatever. It's just this beautiful ability to start from the thought, from that, and that's, I think, what makes it so intimate, is that it's not performative in many ways. It's very, very personal. So I love that. Okay. Hi, France, somebody said. Can you see the value in writing a letter to someone who can't read? Of course. I think what you learn from this, and what I got from this book, was the amount of compassion that little dog has for his mother. And that even though they have a fraught relationship, and that even though there is this gulf between them, he has escaped enough or evolved enough that he's aware that she might not even be able to have the emotional language to understand all of this. And in some ways, it's as much for him that he writes this, and that he sorts out all his own complicated feelings and he puts it on paper, because he knows that she loves him, which is kind of the most important thing. And he'll probably never get to have this kind of conversation the way that he wants to have, but at least he can express himself in this way. I think that's my interpretation. What resonated with me most, the prose or the story or the characters? I would say it's I think it's always a combination of all of those things. I think the best kind of writing brings you in a multitude of ways. It's never just about one thing. I think you can have beautiful writing and shitty plot and it doesn't make for a compelling book, or you can have great plot and shitty writing. I just was really moved by it. Just was such a unique voice, and again, that personal, it almost felt voyeuristic to be reading some of this, and again, just the poetry of it. I mean, the ability to conjure an image. I mean, there's one when they went to the butcher's, and she just kind of go, the ribs are just like a person's after they're burnt, and you're like, and she laughs, and that gives you so much more information in one sentence about the things that she has seen and experienced and the places she has been, than if he had just started off the story like, my mother, she was born here and here and here, I think, anyway, that's what I think. So we're getting into, I thought I had marked more earlier on. Let's go to some more questions. Did the theme of diaspora resonate with you? Yes. I think, I left Ireland at the age of 18. Obviously, my experience has been very different, but I do recognize something of living in a place that's not your own, and this idea of constantly sort of not being one thing or the other, as in obviously I'm Irish, but because I've not lived there, I've not lived there longer than I lived there at this point. I don't have the same experience as an Irish person living in Ireland. I've missed a whole cultural experience that makes people who live in Ireland now Irish. And so you feel a little bit like a stranger when you go home, as much as when Lan went to Vietnam, or not Lan, when Little Dog went to Vietnam after Lan's funeral. It's this thing of being between worlds, and you're never, when I was living in America, I was never an American. I'm living in Scotland, I'm not Scottish. But I don't really have all of those things that people in Ireland have, as in references and all of these things. So yeah, I definitely connected with that.